All right. Hi, everyone. This is Sayana, and I'm here with Gab.
Hi, this is Gab, and welcome to the GNA podcast brought to you by Cultural Vistas, YLoop Digital Solutions, and the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines.
So, Gab and I created this podcast because we always talk about friends doing inspiring work in the communities. We know there are many of them out there and needed a space to just talk about it. So, why not create a podcast to amplify their voices and maybe inspire more people?
Exactly. We want to be able to create a ripple effect of valuable conversations and provide a platform to connect with like minded people. And since we're both international exchange alumni at the U.S. Embassy Manila, we celebrate this community by bringing them together featuring different themes of their advocacies.
We are so excited to start this conversation. Please don't forget to subscribe to GNA Podcast. You can find us in Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and of course, Apple Music.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Media Civics Lab Seminar
I
Workshop
hope that you're looking
Series.
forward for another learning session tonight. We're gonna be talking about
I have a new friend, and at first they were very serious people.
Magandang araw and mabuhay! Chairwood Ayan.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about creative design and expression. And this is part of the season one of the podcast, which has an umbrella theme of creative design and expression, and of course, restoration. So, the question that we want to answer in this podcast episode is how can we use design to amplify impact in the grassroots, especially rural communities? So, for us youth leaders, it's important to employ design thinking methodologies and the projects that we do. But the bigger question is how does it all amount to restoring our core, especially when we already feel advocacy burnout, for example? How do us youth leaders tap to our inner well being and restore our youth when it all gets challenging and overwhelming? So these are the questions that we would like to answer in our podcast. Unfortunately, we will be joined by some special guests. Our special guests for today are co-YSEALI alums Julienne, Ron Reyes, and Patrick Arcellana. Julian, Ron, and Pat are the co-founders of Hirayang Kabataan, an award-winning project of the YSEALI Seeds 2019. They're going to share their expertise on design thinking and their story of empowering the SK or the Sangguniang Kabataan across 7 cities nationwide. Welcome to the stage.
Right, there you go. Oops, we see Julienne coming up here. Waiting for Ron to show up and Patrick.
Hi
All right,
guys,
there
it's nice to
you
be here.
go. I am
Thanks for
so
having us.
excited. Yes, I'm so excited to learn what have you guys
Hi.
been up to. I just want to ask, like, first to Julianne, how did you all become friends? Like, when did it all started?
Honestly, we came together because we were all looking for an avenue to give back. We all had our jobs. I think Pat might have like the backstory also how we
Yeah.
started.
Well, actually, coming off from Julian's story, so we initially connected with friends, friends of friends, friends of friends of
Mhm.
friends, and then what the main connection is that we wanted to do something more out of our professional jobs and do something for the community and for the Philippines because that's our, I guess, intersection for all of us. We wanted to have common advocacy um, to be implemented outside our job. So we kind of connected and we formed Hirayang Kabataan. So, well, I guess just to shortly explain, so Hirayang means dream or to, and Kabataan means youth for uh, Filipino. So, yeah, we're young professionals that wanted to impart change in the Philippines. So that's Hirayang Kabataan. That's how we um, became friends.
Okay, yeah. Did you guys all meet I've heard DAP, right? Development Academy of the Philippines. Is this where the project was born? Or maybe yeah, any one of you could answer that.
Sige, I'll answer siguro no. Actually, the project, as Pat mentioned, no, parang we were all young professionals. Kumbaga kami yung young professionals na, wow, ang dami nang ginagawa, pero willing pa rin to do something now more. And I think yung idea na of like running this program called SKY, Sangguniang Kabataan Academy Initiative, um, really was just a brainchild of different conversations that we had. So we were having dinner, talking about our current education program. Tapos sabi namin na parang, why not let's make something for the SK? Total, like there's still our community, young people. And it was another space that we haven't tried making a program for. Ayun. Baka kayo, Ron and
Okay.
Pat, want to add also.
I actually want to hear more from Ron. Because we have a question. I was supposed to ask Ron what inspired you guys in coming up with this project, but since Julienne and Pat already talked about it, maybe Ron, what also like individually, where were you coming from in joining this very inspiring project of your team?
Well, we all come from different backgrounds. So we have youth member orgs that are from the academe, from the government, from the research sector. No? So we somehow banded together and used our strengths in actually pushing forward their advocacy. And somehow we were able to pinpoint the Sangguniang Kabataan Academy initiative as our one of our platforms in helping the country create better leaders all throughout the country.
Right. I think what I would say overall, just by asking, like, how did you all become friends? Parang in one sentence, I would say great minds think alike. Like, yeah, right. I
Definitely.
mean, definitely, like young professionals just out there aside from work, but you guys have this passion and burning energy. No, balik that. Burning passion and energy to actually like get that out as aside from work and put that into something productive and something that you would be able to give back to the community. Now this one's going to be a little bit technical just because Patrick already mentioned what's Hirayang Kabataan, but for us to be able to really understand what this project is all about, we actually went through a little bit of your briefer. And then to Patrick, I understand that in the project you have identified certain values as the backbone of this project. We were just curious, or if you'd like to share, how did you come up with those? Like, there's a lot of values out there, and I believe there were three, if I recall. So, like from those specific three values or the certain values that identified, where were you coming from? What were your references, or were there any inspiration, like, or was it just like out of the blue, very mundane, and be like, oh, sige, ito, let's identify this, let's do this, or was there something out there that you could share to us? How did guys came up to it?
Well, at first, actually para siyang spontaneous lang. So, well, in relation to what we've already said, parang the project was born out of certain conversations. So I think back then, one of our friends actually see Carlo Africa. So we were active in our own school groups back then in college, law school. So we were volunteering for many different activities and projects. And not just naman yung mga parang casual projects and activities, but also those projects and activities that have a serious impact in the community and of course with the Philippines. So medyo malaki at the forefront. And then when we banded together, yun nga, um, uh, outside of our professional lives, parang we wanted something to um, have I guess, an escape from what we usually do. So we decided or we thought of having a project on reaching out with the youth. In this case, particularly yung mga with elective positions, since
Mm-hmm.
we believe that these are the core movers in the grassroots community. These youth leaders are not just capable, but these are eventually the ones that can have a ripple effect in the Philippines. So
Right.
we, out of our experience na kung kami nga nakakapag-contribute naman kami dun sa community namin, why, paano hindi magagawa ng mga SK, yung Sangguniang Kabataan, to their own communities and eventually as flag bearers in the Philippines. So that's really the driving force of the core values of the project. So
Mm-hmm.
first, of course, self-awareness. So of course, you have to know what you're capable of, your core skills, core values, and then you nurture them into your own skill set, and of course you apply them outside. So actually, when we get a chance to develop our own skills, we go and help the community. So that's when we form the second value, societal awareness. So it's really seeking um, ways on how you can share your own abilities, own skills into the betterment of your community. So of course, saan ka pa ba magko-contribute or saan ka pa ba gagalaw
Mm-hmm.
kundi doon sa sarili mong mga kasama, friends, community, di ba? So, ganun yung progress niya. And of course, at the very last, yung heroic leadership. So, of course, we want to eventually spread this movement, spread our own skills and abilities, not just in our communities, but of course, as leaders in our own aspects in the Philippines. So, bigger yung scope niya, of course. So, ganun namin naisip yung core values ng program. And we thought and we believe that this kind of progress and this kind of program will be the best program that we can offer to Sangguniang Kabataan officials and of course for the youth. So
That
that's
was
the
very insightful, Pat. Especially when it comes to the values that you share, the societal awareness, the heroic leadership. All of them are actually very impressive. Two things that really were highlighted when you were speaking. Number one, when you were talking about escape as a youth leader, no, parang ang ganda lang pakinggan minsan kasi na parang youth
hindi kami
leader tapos
sinasabing
escape. Yes, but you were
Stress na ba
escaping
tayo
to do
lahat?
community volunteering, right? So, 'di ba? Parang
Mhm.
what a great escape to do some community return value, right? Secondly is the SK. Of course, we're talking about elected youth officials. And as a matter of fact, my NGO, Break the Fake as well, has actually done a year-long project with the SK officials. And I guess that's where the synergy is coming from then, diba? So more on values, I want to ask this question to Julian. What was the most exciting part of the project? Because you were running from one city to another for 1 year. So what was the most exciting part of it all?
I think for me talaga, what was really exciting was getting to meet all these different inspiring youth leaders and seeing yung differences and the different backgrounds nila in all the way from Mangaldan, Pangasinan to Valencia, Bukidnon, to Sipalay, Negros Occidental, to Tabaco Albay, and also to Isabela, Basilan, no? All of these
Mm-hmm.
five cities that we went through, iba-iba yung experiences and expertise that they brought to the table. And it was so refreshing for us na kami who came from these different youth leadership backgrounds. So in Hirayang Kabataan, siguro just a little trivia, no? We have people who are experts already in the education sector, people who are experts in law, people who are experts in local governance. And so from us na for us to be able to go into these spaces and learn more no, from other much younger minsan na youth leaders natin in elected positions. It was really such a refreshing experience to listen to what they had to bring to the table, to listen to their aspirations. Bakit nga ba sila nagko-continue as youth leaders, no? Napakahirap maging FK leader. It's so difficult to be an elected official na at the same time, sometimes they're also students or they're also working on the side. No? So why do they pursue and continue in this kind of career, no? So it was wonderful to hear their personal leadership journeys and see them grow and yung openness nila to learn from the program as well. Ayun. That was the most exciting part for me.
I think I feel you in that, especially like knowing nationwide, you've been from like all like the islands, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And just thinking about it now, like with the global health crisis, you can like look back and say, wow, that was like such an experience. And after some time, we're all locked inside, our houses, and those things cannot really be achieved like immediately right now. Like a lot of barriers are going on. Also, I'd like to really say that, well, in terms of meeting different people, of course, from coming from the different island groups, iba-iba talaga yung mga personalities. And knowing that, well, I have a fair share of my background, but knowing that either they could be elected or they are following like yung nanay or tatay nila could be barangay officials, they may be forced at some point. But knowing that you guys are there, Hirayang Kabataan was there to actually reach out and, hey, whatever like situation you're in, we're here, that you can go through the entire process. Like even if you're just starting, you're already in that, political family or things like that. But to supplement that experience is already very rewarding for that certain person, for a youth just out there, And I do understand, like, especially if mga members lang sila, like they don't get that much highlight and exposure. It's usually just the chairperson or the immediate, of the right hand to the chairperson, or 'di ba? So in that case, like the project alone not kinda but really just focuses on everything. It's a collective approach, but at the same time knowing their selves first before they're able to give and offer their services to the youth, to the youth around them. So now that we have already have a brief background, and I know that it has been 2 years since the project started or was implemented, I'd like to ask Ron to give us a background of what's going on with you guys. What's going on with Hirayang Kabataan? Are there any initiatives or activities happening around the corner?
Mhm. Well, actually, because of the pandemic, we had difficulties at first on how to reach the different youth organizations. No? But um, but we were able to capture different partners. We tapped even the network of YSEALI in actually still continuing the mission of Hirayang Kabataan into training more youth leaders all over the country. So in the past year, we've done online virtual training sessions with youth leaders, both elected and in their own community. We've also had mentoring sessions with out of school youth and actually helping them come up with a project in their own community. And more recently, we had a project on the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. We've had learning sessions which would help the people of Bangsamoro be more to understand how the parliament works and how the elections actually differ from what we've used to in the past. So tuloy-tuloy lang din. Mahirap man, madaming limitations brought about by COVID and the many mobility difficulties and challenges. Pero Hirayang Kabataan is still here. We continue to reach out and actually help where we can.
Right. Well, we do acknowledge, I mean, everyone in this community knows the challenges brought to us about the global health crisis. But at the same time, I'd really like to commend you guys. Like, regardless of that, Hirayang Kabataan is very flexible. And I'm really surprised to know about your initiatives in the Bangsamoro. Knowing that, the youth there also has a specific, well, a different context, and that's why there's also a specific kind of like training needed to supplement them in their community. So I'm like really surprised. And well, just to, a little bit quick follow up, anyone of you could answer. How different was the experience knowing, in that, in doing it in the Bangsamoro region, and was there any takeaway, or was there any reflection coming from that experience?
Sige, baka I can start.
Okay, go,
Well,
Julienne.
go lang. Personally, I'm not part of that specific project team, no. But from what I know of the project, what really was the challenge, dealing with the different information na meron sa Bangsamoro context, no, was really facing that wall of jargon, kumbaga, when it comes to like we're trying to roll out this whole new
Right.
transition. And ang dami palang layers and elements to understanding paano nga ba yung sistema. Like even amongst ourselves, when nag-meeting kami and ina-explain yung process, para kami, wait, anong calculation? Parang may mga umabot sa even na parang when it comes to the electoral process, etc., etc. And so really the challenge there for us was how do we capture that into information na maintindihan ng citizens also, and for a conversation to happen, no? Kasi even when we were trying to design the materials, I remember na there was even the question na wait, we should also keep in mind that we are designing even for the illiterate. Na there might be people who are not just going to be challenged, no, by the complexities of the legalities ng nangyayari ngayon with the
That's
Bangsamoro
true.
transition, diba? But also there are people na even at the level of, okay, you can simplify it, but maybe they can't even access that. And so I think that's always been what Hiraya's work is about. No, we always try to make sure na we first seek to understand what's happening on the ground before we create a solution, before we design a program, before we interact with the community. Para, what we're creating is something that's really useful to the people who we're trying to serve.
Right. I can actually relate to that, no, kasi feeling ko, etong mga projects natin, before we could really have a true or real impact, we do need to conduct a needs assessment analysis, right, of what's going to happen on the ground, how are we going to be able to localize the language of the materials we're going to develop, and things like that. Kasi ang daming programa na magaganda. But what's really lacking is yung kind of synergy from the higher ups in terms of understanding what's really happening on the ground. So I commend Hiraya and the initiatives as well, especially in terms of amplifying the impact in training our elected youth leaders, and especially with the work that you guys have done with the Bangsamoro. Because I and Ayana actually came from Mindanao, and so we have a lot of work in terms of like the peace negotiations with the Bangsamoro and things like that. So being part of the peace process is also really part of our development as a youth leader. Now, I want to ask this question to Patrick. If you could recall the entire experience of the project, what was your ultimate takeaway? Because I could remember when I was, because I was running a project together with these guys, and they were all putting up these amazing and colorful social media posts in Instagram, and that sort of like became a benchmark for everybody else. Everybody else, they were doing
Oh,
design
wow.
thinking methodologies. So I don't know who's in charge of the social media or what, but you
Yeah.
guys are really doing a good job. So what is the ultimate takeaway of all these things? How did you guys do it? Did you guys do design thinking at all in terms of like before pulling up something? Would you mind to share, Pat?
Well, first of all, FY, thank you, Ron, for the social media blasts. so, siya yung push talaga. But I guess for your question, my main takeaway would be actually when you asked, the first word that came to my mind was fulfilling talaga, fulfilling. Not to be cliche, but um, I guess it manifested from the time na when we conducted the actual programs. When I personally participated in the Mangaldan program, there were a couple of times that we were there were some participants after the program, after the day, that they reached out to us and they did small talk na parang sobrang ganda nitong part na to ng program. um, they share their realizations and their new learnings, and eventually, even after the program ended, and even after a couple of months, couple of years, I think there were some who look back at those programs and those parts of the programs and shared to us that they're still applying these programs, these activities, and what they learned from those activities in their own communities and in their own programs. So, for us, or for me at least, that's very fulfilling because I guess as a program facilitator or as a teacher in general, it's really fulfilling to see your um, student applying what he or she has learned from what you contributed or what you offered to them. So I guess yun.
If I may add lang din, oo.
Go.
Yes.
Ipasok ko na dito yung design thinking. Very
Oo.
segue. Hindi, kasi essentially parang what I was connected to what Pat said, no, very fulfilling yung hearing that kind of feedback from the students and which were the SK officials. No? And I think yung isang hindi ko makakalimutan na video because we were taking videos of the students after of like what they felt or thought about the program. Tapos sabi nila, dati po ma'am, yung mga trainings po namin, nakaupo lang kami, pinapapanood lang kami ng videos about ano yung SK reform or yung mga tasks namin, etc. Pero yung na-appreciate po namin dito ay sa program ng Sky, parang yung nangyari talaga ay interactive. May portion kung saan we were asked to really share what our personal leadership journey was and where we wanted to go in the future as youth leaders, no? And may ang daming interactive na sessions wherein we had leadership labs and policy writing. Kumbaga, everything that we did actually, nag-iba-iba siya in a way per city kasi what we were trying to do really was to iterate and make different types of versions of the program that really matched what the needs assessment reflected for each city. So, yun yung natuwa ko na buti nagawa namin. And at the same time, buti
Yeah.
na there was a good parang reception no, from our participants. So, ayun.
Maybe Ron. I think
Ikaw,
Ron
Ron.
wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to share that per area, iba-iba yung learnings namin. Kahit kami as facilitators, really learned a lot from the participants. No, iba pala yung context talaga sa Mangaldan, Pangasinan, for example, versus the one in Tabaco, Albay. But overall, really the energy of the young people is really so strong, and parang it's just a waste if we fail to capture that immense energy talaga and drive that towards positive change. No, I think that is the motivation of the volunteers and the members of Hirayang Kabataan to keep pushing forward. That even if may mga personal challenges, may struggles din yung mga members and volunteers, really volunteer our time and make sure that we find time to talk to our youth leaders and somehow help them become better leaders in their own areas, and hopefully that will create a ripple effect within their own community.
Right. I think also, I mean, after hearing all of this, knowing that SK stopped for some time, right? So that means parang it wasn't touched for a long time, and then you kind of change the field and the expectation of saying, okay, we're not sitting down, but we're doing activities. You will be involved, and that is learning by doing. You're their own, and coming from being the youth or this young professional, you know what these people, what this youth are like, craving for, what they want for. They don't just want to sit down, watch videos and all of that. They want to communicate. Mas dapat you have to give them more time to speak instead of just you speaking in front, because attention span and all things generated, I mean, related to Gen Z and the millennials. So you really have to improvise in the different, different settings, different scenarios. And I really have so much respect for the project, for Sky Project, because knowing that you're doing it nationwide, and Julienne mentioning na parang na you have needs assessment in different cities, that's a lot of work. Like, it's not like, guys, you have to own it, get the fulfillment, and at the same time, you claim it that after leaving, that city, you already did something, more than what these people are asking for. Kasi all they know is like, okay, may ano na naman, they would usually say may NGO na nandito, and then, or they would say, oh, may donation, but this is different. They don't get anything materialistic, but it's something that they would be able to carry on, as they move forward to their own path or the different careers after SK. Because for
Mm-mm.
most of them, or some that I've heard of, SK is their entire life. And their entire life is just based on, uy, magsasolicit sa counselor, or sitting
Mm-mm.
in the, together with the council members, and that's just about it. But after going through that experience, they're saying it's not just about this, but it's more so developing, self-awareness, and then moving forward to what I can give to the community. And at the end of the day, overall, I develop a certain kind of leadership, which is heroic leadership, and all of those are into your, the framework of the project. So, like, something that I would really be proud of, to say that I know this project, and I wish I knew about it earlier, na nakapag-volunteer sana ako.
Oo nga,
Yes.
sana sumama ka, ayan na.
But moving forward, yeah, so let's put it out there that, without also the idea, or for winning YSEALI seeds, or getting that, this won't be possible. So we wanted to talk about YSEALI seeds. I mean, I'm hopeful Julienne could explain to us, what do you think about YSEALI seeds, and how did it help you put this project into fruition? Because not everyone is familiar about YSEALI seeds. It's not. It's very common in our community, but what it is it all about, and what kind of support were you able to receive?
I think we really are super grateful to YC Seeds and to Cultural Vistas and the US Embassy in Manila for giving us the support in running programs like this. So, parang what I remember during that time when we really were running Sky was alongside us, no, we weren't the only team who was making these huge ambitious development projects, but really seeing na, especially nung nagkaroon ng social media takeover from the different YCD Seeds winners of the different countries, we were able to see na, wow, ang daming different advocacies of different inspiring young people from all across Southeast Asia and also the Philippines, no? And through the help of YCD Seeds, we were provided not only with the resources to run this program, no, without that talaga hindi kami makapunta from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. But really, there was that constant support. So we wanted to thank the team of Natalia and Nalindra, no, from Cultural Vistas also for really providing us with regular sessions also where they would monitor our progress. They would ask what kind of support we needed, if there was any kind of expertise that they could share as we ran the program, no, from their own experience guiding other development programs. So that was really very helpful for us. They were very hands-on with the work that we were doing. It wasn't just parang, oh, here's the grant and then go run your program and then just come back to us. Parang for us talaga, they were constantly emailing us ni Pat and ni Ron. Na minsan kami pa nga ni Pat and Ron, ano na yung present natin, kailangan malinis, ganyan. So I actually also want to take this time, no, kasi since we're already talking about YCD Seeds,
Yes, go
the
ahead.
success talaga of Sky is not just sa Hirayang Kabataan, but we wanted to thank also all of the other YSEALI alumni who were part of the making this program a reality. So thankful dun sa buong network, no. So we have sina upskilled from USJA Negros Occidental, sina Kath and Pete, and also yung mga different YSEALI from the different LGUs. So sina Lev from Basilan, sina Leo and DM from Bukidnon, si Kim from Tabaco Albay, and also sina Frankie from London Pangasinan. May na-miss ba ako, guys?
May na-miss ba,
Parang,
guys?
Covered lahat.
Okay.
parang bago makalimutan, no?
Yes,
Ayun.
definitely. And I would really say na it's kasi kabatch natin sina Hirayang Kabataan, no? So when these amazing people won the YSEALI Seeds, we also won a grant from YSEALI Seeds as well on the same year, and we did a hackathon across Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So that was amazing, and we were actually supported by the Cultural Vistas team as well. So I and Ron and Pat went to Indonesia to get a lot of mentoring support. So that was really awesome, and we really are hoping that more and more people will actually receive support in terms of like leadership development from cultural vistas and YC seats in particular. So um, right now, because we're wrapping up the discussion on the project, the very amazing project of Hirayang Kabataan, let's now talk about your personal advocacies as a youth leader, right? Because we're all part of a community and we keep on saying YSEALI or the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. But what is it really about? We are actually beyond YSEALI and the network itself. We have personal endeavors. And I want to really dig deeper on the personal advocacies of everyone. So let's start maybe with Julian. I know I've actually browsed over your LinkedIn. You co-founded
Oh,
Fennel
yeah.
on 2016. Yes, I did. For the benefit of everyone, Fennel is a design agency in the Philippines that uses design thinking and strategy to help social causes and advocacies. I want to know, how are you now? What are you up to? And are you still active in Fennel or have you pursued any other advocacy?
Yan. Thanks for wow, my research talaga si Gab. So yeah, actually Fennel is still operating. No, I'm no longer actively working in Fennel, but I still am connected to the partners. No, the amazing team that's still working on using design for social causes. And for me personally, that's always been my advocacy. I've always wanted to use creativity and design in a way that really makes an impact in the daily lives of the people we work with. So often, no, when we talk about design, we think it's something that's pretty, it's a poster that you see on
Yes.
social media, it's graphic design, no. But really, design is getting from point A to point B. It's that plan that makes your ideas into reality, no? And it's something between art and science for me. And for me, ang daming opportunities for you to use design in the development sector. No? So even with Hirayang Kabataan and Sky, creating a module that would cater to the different needs that arose during our sessions and meetings with the different YCD representatives of the different provinces. That process itself was designing for social good. So that's something that I think I will carry on forever. But
Yes.
regardless of where I am, that's always been my advocacy. Ayun.
It's like your baby project, right? And
I
I kind of
know.
feel like it's always going to be a part of your legacy that you started the design agency. I'm not sure what your current engagements or endeavors are, but I'm pretty sure as well that Fennel will always have a special place in your heart because that's the one that really lit up your fire in terms of like youth leadership and development, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I could also actually I could share more. The first time I met Julienne was the very first alumni reunion. And I remember we're just parang sa alumni network night. That's where she's like, "Hi, I'm Julian. I design things." I'm like, "What?" And then she started talking about this and that. I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Huh, design what?" So I was really amused, like, and what she mentioned, a design goes above and beyond yung mga aesthetic things, but it is used in different projects, how you promote and the project design it in a way that it speaks the same language to the community you are reaching out to. um and so that's what I we always remember, like Julianne Fennel. Yun talaga yung memory ko when I would recall where our friendship started, and that's where it did start. Okay, now
Oh,
that with
yeah.
your, yeah, you're right. I remember. So I can't really forget about that. So thanks, Julian. Now that we've heard more about Julian, let's go to Ron. The research student coming. So with Ron, we know that you're busy with work as a senior project specialist at FINMA. And we'd like to ask you to share more about it. And what are you busy with right now?
Well, on top of my usual work with FINMA, I volunteer directly with Hirayang Kabataan. We still do leadership trainings regularly. with youth leaders here in Manila and even outside. I think for the past year, I've also been busy with COVID response. So we mobilized different groups and lead them to where they can help. With the team of Julienne, there was this group called Help from Home, which Hirayang Kabataan members really volunteered and helped create a platform to be able to really bridge the needs of the um, those affected by COVID and those who would want to help out. And also our members were able to come up with communication boards for ICU patients so that they can easily mention or communicate or point towards what they need at that time. So with Hirayang Kabatanos, really we continue to create programs for our members and our volunteers to continue helping. So mas dun yung napupunta talaga yung free time ko. Aside from work, yan talaga kasi I really believe in harnessing the energy of the youth and making sure that we devote that to the various projects that we can initiate where we can, especially at a time of need in this pandemic.
Right. Also, what I also observe what happened after you've initiated and implemented a project is that it actually formed an ecosystem, right? Like after this project, you began to network and then it kind of expands. But at the same time, it's rooted on the fundamental idea of, creating this community and implementing something that roots back na okay, it started with Sky and together with from here in Kabataan. You mentioned about mentoring, and I would like to ask, like if you have any example of the success of the success of the mentoring process. Like, were there any certain youth who reached out na nagsabi, Kuya or Sir, this is where I am now because this is what I learned, or things like that. Like these kinds of stories from the ground na bumalik sa inyo, and you're like, wow, this is not just about using KPI as a measurement of success, but it's something you hear from their stories. If you have anything to share with that, would really love to hear it.
Yeah, actually, during our first run, in back in 2018, we really started with unorganized or school-based youth leaders or students, regular students, a regular
Mm-hmm.
high school student. So there was this one kid who was there every session. Hindi parang wala namang kami expectation sa kanya. Hindi siya student council officer, hindi siya class officer. Nandun na siya, actively participating in all our sessions. Tapos all throughout, parang we get to know the kid, the person talaga. We got to know the story. Nakikita namin yung motivation niya talaga to go every Sunday, every Saturday talaga to attend our sessions. And even after our leadership trainings there in their school, nagme-message talaga siya na, Kuya Ron, kailan po ba kayo babalik? Kailan po ba talaga, kailan po natin matutuloy yung leadership sessions natin? Kasi we really want to volunteer. We want to extend that opportunity given to us, to our classmates and our schoolmates. No? So nakikita mo talaga na kahit sila, may certain level of eagerness to share that opportunity to actually be better and to siguro to understand and develop their potential. So hanggang ngayon, medyo may utang pa kami, hindi pa kami nakakabalik sa Binyan, Laguna because of COVID, but we really want to go back. That's our first project talaga that we started in 2018. Yep, nakakatuwa kasi if you hear stories talaga from your participants and how the program helped them become better students and maybe leaders in their own right. Nakaka-fulfill kahit minsan napapagod ka na. You parang you feel energized and parang super eager ka to go out again and continue the project.
Mm-mm.
Right.
I want to add
And
also.
oh yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Julian.
Isang story lang also, I remember we were in Valencia, Bukidnon, tapos kakatapos lang namin i-run yung program, no? Tapos lumapit sa amin yung SK and also the vice mayor nun. And they shared na they really appreciated part the session where we asked them to really actually go out of the conference hall and interview people on the street of the city, no?
Oh.
To get yung real concerns nila. So, nilagyan talaga namin ng ganong portion para may real data sila to start with when they design their programs. Tas sinabi nila sa amin na actually dahil sa session na to, na-realize namin na hindi pala sobrang sakto yung current na activities dun sa local youth development plan nila. And so, mas may idea na sila on how they can tweak it to further improve it. And so, that was really such a proud moment for us na yung mga participants themselves. So, na hindi lang namin ginagawa yung empathy building for wala lang dahil, para exciting yung format ng workshop. But really, so that para legit, para tama talaga yung ginagawang projects ng SK. So, nakaka-proud yun when
Yes.
you see that your participants are actually learning. So,
Yeah, and I actually like what I've mentioned before. I was actually a teacher then sa DICT. So some of the that locality that of Valencia Bukidnon is also, a beneficiary of the Digital Jobs PH training. And like what these people what these amazing youth leaders are sharing also, no. Parang one of the greatest validation is when you realize that all of these modules, all of these projects that we're planning on the nationwide level, the moment they translate to actual testimonials, it just feels like so heartwarming, right? Parang ito yung ultimate testimony of being a youth leader. Now, I also just want to share because I actually felt like I remembered back then, and Ron is actually a member of FINMA, right? He's working at FINMA. I was a scholar of FINMA Foundation since the entire high
Wow.
school
Small
actually.
world.
Yeah. So
testing.
there was an effort to actually
Galing.
gather all the FINMA scholars. So I'm hoping to be part of it if there was gonna be an alumni gathering for FINMA Foundation scholars. Yeah, but let's try to hear from Patrick. Patrick, who just got wed this year, congratulations, Pat.
Thank
Is
you.
a junior associate at Puat Jacinto and Santos law firm. Correct me if I'm wrong
Yeah.
if I did pronounce it correctly, Pat. Can you please
We,
share to us your current endeavors, your new life as an attorney, a junior associate, and of course the newly married life?
yeah, so, no, no, medyo different yung background ko ngayon. So, with Julienne and Ron. So, actually ironic, I spoke earlier about escaping the professional life. But right now, medyo hindi ako naka-escape sa professional life ko. So, medyo naka-bono ako doon. I mean, of course, aside from married life. But I guess the silver lining in my professional life would be the actual work that I do with Puya Jacinto Santos Law. So I'm currently in the energy practice area. So we're mostly handling energy projects, but mostly renewable energy projects. And actually, the good thing was that before I transferred here in PJS Law, so I really wanted to focus on environment as an advocacy. And then after a few trips abroad, parang nakita ko yung kung paano na-progress yung renewable energy across other countries. So back then in law school, I wanted to have a sort of marrying of the renewable energy aspect and the law. So before I joined PJS Law, I know that it's mainly an energy firm. So I wanted to, I guess, develop my skills on that aspect. So doon ako pumasok, eventually okay naman, nakapasok. And I guess the actual silver lining is that we assist clients in putting up renewable energy projects or acquiring their interests in current renewable energy projects. So medyo tunog, I guess, from an outside person looking in, parang yung tunog niya parang ang weird kasi may pagka-corporate yung tunog. But then if you zoom out, I guess, ikita mo rin yung kung paano nagpe-play out yung advocacy on the actual projects. Since we assist clients in putting up for example, its own offshore wind farms, or the very first hybrid solar energy, solar rooftop projects in Palawan, which is an off-grid area. So it's really isolated from the main energy systems here in the Philippines. So what's really fulfilling, I guess, in terms of advocacy is um, nakakagulat pala na may ganong level rin of appreciation of renewable energy even with so-called corporate side of the spectrum. And most of the clients that we've worked with, so they really want to put up these kinds of projects here in the Philippines because first they see the potential of renewable energy, and they see the benefit to the communities. And of course, second is how it can actually contribute with the, well, overall sustainability of the environment moving forward for future generations, without necessarily risking or sacrificing um, yung sarili nilang kita or kita ng mga um, empleyado rin nila. So it goes both ways naman. And what's really amazing rin is I think from what Ron said earlier, yung harnessing the energy, the youth. So nakakatuwa na within our own project community, meron din kami mga nakakatrabaho na ka-age namin or mas bata that are well-versed in renewable energy, different aspects actually. So the financial aspect, the technical aspect. So may times na nagkakaroon ako ng situations na pag nakuha ko yung inputs nila, naisip ko na parang, ganun pala yung nag-work or ganun pala siya nagpe-play out dun sa, for example, sa river na to, ganun pala nila pinapalakad yung um, hydropower plant nila doon. So, I guess in a way, um, if I zoom out from the actual work, I see the actual benefit with the communities where the projects are being put up, and of course, with the Philippines. So, I guess in that aspect. And so, I guess do sa married life naman, supportive naman yung wife ko doon. Kahit na medyo patay-patay ako sa work. Okay lang naman. Pero, blessed or not to have a supporting wife and family. So, I guess that's the good thing about it.
Right. Thank you so much, Pat. What I really appreciate also about this community and hearing from you is that we all come together to do something, as YSEALI alums and all of that. But we're also individually very unique in our own expertise. Like you're focused into this, and so that's why our network in the entire alumni community is also very unique. Like you can reach out to this person, parang hindi naman kalad ka rin, but like it's so easy to have a different set of people, parang menu of different expertise that you can just tap and, hey, are you free, can you join us, or could you be our speaker? And it's just really nice because aside from implementing a certain project, you're also learning whatever these people are talking about. And even in the implementation alone, as you've mentioned before, the project does not stop, or even the funders or the sponsors does not just stop to give the money, but there's also mentoring. So it's not just the community that we are reaching out to, but it's also us who's also developing and learning or relearning the different topics that we're also that's part in our project. Now, I would just go back, to the overall theme of the podcast, where actually the Unified series is focused on the theme of restoration. We're all, know and worried about the global health crisis, but just to tap into that and to the theme, let's talk about the inner well-being as youth leaders. Now, I would like to ask, how do you recover or embody self-care? We've already put in place all the things that we're doing for the community, but it's also important to tap into our inner self, right? We cannot give if we're burnt out, exhausted, and things like that. So that's why it would also be interesting. And how do you take care of yourself? How do you embody that? And so, what habits can you share to our audiences? Or there might be someone out there, a youth leader listening, who's already burned out but still wants to help. Like, when do you stop? When do you take a break? Do you have anything to share?
Sige. I'll go first. Yeah.
Sure, Julian.
Um, I think when it comes to restoring your own energy and really taking care of yourself, no, I think it's easy to say na parang, oh, then you should probably get a massage or like treat yourself, deserve mo yan, yan, 30th month pay mo, no? So, um, pero really when we talk about self-care, it goes beyond those they're helpful, no, those kinds of activities, but self-care really looks into the more even more difficult aspects of loving yourself, and I would say that comes with knowing where your boundaries are. And I know as youth leaders we're poor at this, no, na parang usually if you're like me, parang sobrang yes person, if you think it's something na worth doing, you'll say yes kagad na, okay, go, collaborate tayo. Let's work on it. Ganyan. But you also have to know na you cannot give from an empty well. And so you have to first set aside what other people are saying and ask yourself in the privacy of your own room, na parang, what are my boundaries? Where do I draw the line when it comes to parang taking care of myself? Kasi we always say para sa bayan, pero kasama rin naman sa bayan yung sarili mo eh. So you also have to value yourself. Kumbaga. And one more thing, no, na when we talk about self-care, actually one more aspect that you should look at is the term community care, no, na hindi ka nag-iisa. You don't have to rely on yourself to restore your own energy, but there are so many other people in your support system, whether family or friends or fellow youth leaders, na pwede mong pagkuhanan ng aruga, ng care, no, to restore your energy. Ayun, that's for me.
Thanks, Julian. I think that's very rich, and there's a lot that I would want to take from what you were saying, no? Mga quotable quotes that I would directly put in my Facebook right now and quote you. um, but one thing I also like about what you said was that a takeaway from what you said is that the global health crisis was also a time for youth leaders, like us, to think, like to take a pause and parang disconnect ourselves and say, hey, I think I need to take care of myself too. No, everyone, we're all on the same page facing what we are facing right now. And so no one is exempted, right? And so that's why we need to see again if we are doing right, if we are not, and we have to take it back, or if we can move forward. Like for me, I have to take a pause and distinguish if it's my energy or it's my adult ADHD talking. No, but I have to do this, I have to do that, and then at the end of the day, I'm like super tired. Like I know I'm fulfilled, but that's not healthy at the end, right? And
Mm.
just by saying that, and to reiterate, since the umbrella of the theme of the Unified series is restoration, if you were to define the youth of today in just one word, what would it be? Let's maybe hear from Ron, and then to Patrick and Julianne.
I think the youth is still very hopeful. So
Right,
despite of the challenges, we're still hopeful that a better future will be upon us.
right. I'll say hopeful. Yes, thank you. What about Pat?
For me, I guess vibrant.
Nice.
Nice.
Parang I guess when you say youth, parang it excites me in the sense na I I'm always excited on what they can do, what they can contribute. It's always a surprise for me. So it's always parang with a bang na ay sa yung youth pala, ito na yung nagagawa nila. Parang ganun yung effect sa akin. So I think vibrant would be a good word.
Yeah, we have vibrant and we have hopeful. And what about Julian?
Sabi ni Ron yung hopeful eh. Wait lang. For me,
Sana goal.
okay, I'm gonna stand
Wistful.
Hindi, for me, I think one word talaga is the youth are resisting. And I think pagod tayong lahat. Like, we have a lot of things on our plate aside from the global health crisis, no, and climate change that we have to deal with. But what really is inspiring is seeing people online and in person among your friends na, patuloy pa rin lumalaban on the daily, even if they're already tired and we keep asking ourselves, bakit ko ba ito ginagawa? Ayan. Parang it all looks so bleak, no? But people still find reasons um, to keep persisting, to keep trying their best and showing that there is a better future that we can achieve, but will only be attainable if we actually take steps and not just say, sana, diba? Pero
Mhm.
young people are.
That's so well, I'm so amazed right now. Um Actually, it's so fun, no? And it's so nice to have these kind of conversations, just laid back, sitting in our, and having that kind of energy and fuel and desire to community service with other really enthusiastic youth leaders that we have here. So first of all, I'd like to really thank you guys for the energy. Thank you for the inspiration, and thank you for all of that enthusiasm for passionate service.
Yeah.
I think that the country will actually be needing more duplicates of you guys in the future. And I'm pretty sure that the impacts that you have already done will remain to be a legacy. Okay. And keep that fire burning, because we are going to be your first fans and supporters in lobbying um, for further service, for further passion, and further fire. So we will always push for providing a platform, whatever way we could, to amplify the work that you guys do. Now, given that, since we all have to make this, to already close this conversation, do you have any parting message to our youth leaders and other listeners? How would what exactly would you like to tell them, in terms of, baka may mga reminders kayo dyan, mga point of inspiration, or like mga quotable quotes, ganun. Ilabas ka na. Maybe we can start with, who wants to start? Julian or
Oh, si madaming quotable quote si
Oo
Julian.
nga,
Baka
si Julian parang gagano siya.
okay.
Kaya naman.
Actually, sinulat ko pa na sa joke lang. Hindi, go kayo muna guys. Nag-isip din ako.
Yeah.
Sige,
Yeah. Siguro
yeah,
I'll add,
Ron.
no?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. From what Julian mentioned earlier, na parang it's very important we really take a pause and do the right pacing, no? Kasi we don't want to exhaust all our energy, all our resources immediately. This is not a sprint. It is a marathon that we need to sustain our energy so that we can effect change wherever we hope to make that change. No? So my message to the youth would be to keep doing what you're doing and make sure that you go back to your why, especially when you start questioning what you're doing. Um, the core purpose, the core reason why you're doing things really matter, especially when you experience challenges in your activities or your own passion projects. And for us in Hirayang Kabataan, we really believe that the future will be made better by the Filipino youth. So we should always take an active stance in whatever we do, may it be in local governance, in our own barangays, in our SK councils, or even in our schools. We can definitely make a better place where we can, especially since we have our voice and we need to have that voice communicated to our stakeholders in our community. But siguro I'll stop um that with the thought that it's okay to pause and it's okay to take care of yourself. It's not selfish at all to actually rest and put things for tomorrow. What matters really is that you continue the course, and with you wake up every day and you feel energized. Um, para pagpatuloy talaga what you really want to do. So, yun lang. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ron, for that very inspiring parting message. And I'm pretty sure a lot of our youth leaders will continue to adopt whatever you guys have started, will continue to, adopt whatever those best practices you've already trailblazed sa Hirayang Kabataan, especially. Now, let's go with Patrick. What was your message for our youth leaders?
Well, for me, I guess in connection with our own project and from my background in assisting renewable energy projects, my message for the youth is don't be afraid to be a pioneer. So I know that, for example, our proud project, the Sky, is one of the relatively new projects, and it's a pioneering project here in the Philippines. Um, Same as what we do usually in our own firm, we assist clients in their pioneering projects here in the Philippines. So since the technology is relatively new, and what we say to these clients, and I guess this would also reflect in the project, is um, we are with the clients or with the project participants in um, experiencing and going through their pains as a pioneer, but it's included in the process. It's part of being first in what you do, and pushing through on what you believe will be helpful moving forward for the community in the Philippines. So I guess, of course, as a pioneer, you don't know what to expect, what the future will hold for your project, if it will succeed or not. But it's a pain that you have to go through as a pioneer. And I guess what would be good as for the youth is not to be afraid of being a pioneer, and just pushing forward, believing what you think will be right, believing in your project or your activity, and of course pushing through with that. So same as what Ron said, nga, don't forget your whys, and this will help you eventually to go past the pains of being a pioneer. So yun, good luck.
Thank you so much, Pat. Amazing messages, guys. I am so stunned. It does seem like I'm listening to a TED talk already. Okay, now let's Julian, the bar has been set so high, so let's listen to you.
Naku, ano ba 'yan? Dapat pala nauna na lang ako, 'di joke lang. Oh, sobrang ganda nung na-mention nga ni Ron and ni Pat. Super, I just also wanna take the time to thank yung mga kasama ko sa Hirayang Kabataan. Like, these guys, like, it really is an inspiring bunch of young people na, and especially same as the YSEALI network, no? Na seeing all of these young leaders giving so much of themselves and their time to um, give back to their communities. No, siguro for in terms of parting message, I'll go back to yung mga core pillars of what we want to do sa Hirayang Kabataan, and that really is to form youth leaders who seek to understand, choose to respond, and act towards positive change. So yun yung nakikita namin three qualities of young people who really make a difference in their communities. No? Na parang when you when you have that initiative na gusto mo magtanong, why are things like this? No, you want to understand. And then you actually make the decision to be part of that process instead of just saying na, sila na yan, di naman ako kasali dyan. Yan. You choose to respond, and then you take that action towards positive change. No? Na you design and create solutions together with some young people to make a difference. I think those three, combined, that's the type of young leader, that we want to form. And siguro, yung how that would translate, into my message, siguro for other young people like me, and maybe also a message to myself, is to keep pushing, napakadali to just give up and say na it's so hard to fight against the system. Maybe I should just play by the rules of the game. Total, I'm just, sino ba ako? Who am I to na I can go against all of these big powers making drastic changes to the world that we live in right now? No, what can I do to combat that? No, and what I want to say is just keep pushing. Make little acts of resistance everywhere you go, whether it's in your work or in your school or in your barangay or neighborhood, like whether it means asking one question, no, or suggesting an alternative way of doing things, or maybe it's just making a personal choice not to participate in certain things or do certain actions. No, sometimes we think, naku, napakaliit na bagay. It's nothing, no. But as they say, no, sometimes it feels like you're really pushing against a wall. Pero ano yung laban ng pader na yon kung may isang buong wave of people who are smashing back and forth against that wall. And so I guess that's the power of having a network of young people who also want to make a difference. No, you're not alone in this fight. It's easy to feel that way, but the way really is to keep connecting and keep getting in touch with people who share your energy, people who share your passions, people who share your dreams for a better future. And ooh,
Thank you so much, Julia. You really set the highest bar already. That would, like, people would look forward more hopefully in the next episode, just because like the first episode just really sets the bar high for the start of our podcast. And I'd like to reiterate what I said. Great minds think alike. Go and see your work, where do you belong in a community, and you'd always maintain that passion and energy that you have. All right, so that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Julienne, Pat, and Ron for joining us during that informative discussion of design thinking and, of course, sharing their stories. We hope we have inspired you through the works of these talented people. As always, thanks for listening to the GNA podcast.
If you enjoy our show, please subscribe to Spotify and Apple Music and be sure to come back next week for a discussion on limiting media consumption and offline detox with Marlon Nombrado and the rest of the Out of the Box team. Until then, this is Gab and Ayana.
Don't forget, it's the GNA podcast bringing you inspiring life stories of the youth today.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining the Media Civics Lab Seminar Workshop. I know that you're looking forward for another learning session tonight. We're gonna be talking about...
I have a new friend, and at first they were very serious people.
Magandang araw and mabuhay! Chairwood, Alums.